Okay, so we're now going to look at a minor harmony question from question 5 of the composing paper, following on from the major harmony question that we looked at in a previous tutorial. Okay, so just a couple of things to point out here before we start. This is largely the same as the major um, the harmony question. Okay, so when you're looking at your chord sequences, you're looking at your baseline in particular, bar one or two small things, there isn't a huge difference between writing for the minor key or like doing harmony for the minor key and compared to the major key. So don't be intimidated by the minor key. Okay, make sure though to do plenty of practice from the minor key as well as the major key as well, because there's no way of knowing what's going to come up in the paper from one year to the next. Okay, so keep that in mind. You need to be comfortable doing both. Okay, so just a few steps here. Now you probably remember a lot of this from the major harmony question. The process is the same. Okay, so the steps you go through are the same. If you're using my method, you might have your own methods of doing it. Okay, the first thing is complete the chord grid. I don't care how good you are at chords, you are to complete the chord grid. Always complete the chord grid and use it as your point of reference. When you're completing the chord grid in the minor key, and you'll see this when we go through it in a moment, you've got to remember to raise the seventh note in the minor key. Now you'll see what I mean by that. But it's very important. Now, just look at the example. It's easier when I kind of visualize this when I show you here. So, for example, the question we're going to do now here is in the key of C minor. So you notice in the key of C minor, even though the key signature has three flats, it's the seventh note of the scale is raised. Okay, so instead of being a B flat, it's B natural. Now I've put a B here with a natural sign in brackets around it. Okay, that's fine. But I don't need to do that. Once you see the letter B, that refers to the note B natural. You don't put in B flat. If you're putting a chord, let's say for example you were doing the chord of 5B, okay, so the chord of G in the second version, that chord would still be called G/B. You don't need to put the natural sign in it, for example, okay, because B on its own, or any note on its own for that matter, means natural. Okay, so you don't have to put in the natural sign in the chord. But in the bass line, it's absolutely essential that you make sure to call your B's B natural in this case, or whatever the seventh note is. Okay. Okay. Then find your cadence points, same as the major, and actually I would say input your cadence chords. Lightly pencil your options at each chord box along as you go, same as the major key. So for every chord box, just pencil in the options that you have. Don't commit to anything yet, okay? You're kind of looking for sequences here, not just individual chords and so on. You're looking at each line of music as a phrase as opposed to individual chords. Then, once you've looked at your options, choose your chords and put in the note head for the bass note. Okay, remember part of this question is making sure that the bass note matches the chord. So for example, if you have a chord of G marked in your chord box, the bass note has to be a G. Anything else is wrong. Okay, and be particularly careful when you're doing inversions. Okay, so for example, again, using the example of a G in the second position, second inversion, G over B, the bass note there would be B, and so on. Okay, and then after that, after you've sketched in your note heads, and you'll see what I mean about this in a few moments, then create the bass line based on the rhythm and melody of the given bass line. Just remember to raise the sevenths. This means the chord of 5 in this case is a major chord, whereas if you don't raise the seventh, it'll come up as a minor chord in your chord grid. Anywhere you see the raised seventh in the melody, this is important. You use chord 5. Always use chord 5 there. So if you see, for example, and again, just using this case because we're in the key of C minor, anywhere you see a B natural, which is the raised seventh in the minor key, it's going to be the chord of 5 or 5/7. Okay, 5/7, it could work there either as well. When you're using chord 2, now remember chord 2 is a diminished chord. Only use chord 2 in second inversion. Okay, so only use 2B. Okay, and it is fine to double the third in 2B. Okay, so for example, in this key here, we're in the key of again C minor. So the notes of chord 2 are D, F, and A flat. You see it there. Okay, it's perfectly fine, and you really need to have an F in the bass there. Okay, so you think back to the minor key, we said it was a bad thing to double the third. So if you had the third of the chord in the melody, don't have the third note in the bass. it's the opposite here, and that's one of the very few things that's different about the minor key harmony when compared to the major key harmony. And then just a little thing, and I'll show you little things again as we're going along, and as I correct more of your work, and as we do more of this in class, you'll learn lots of little kind of tips. Okay, for example, this is just a thing to watch out for. 2B 571 is a great ending. Okay, just so if you can ever fit that in, just keep it in. I'll also be sending plenty of notes about that on the Google Drive. Okay, just little tips for as you go along how to approach it. Okay. Okay, chord grid, I'm going to assume that's done. Okay, I'd suggest maybe just pause the video and have a look at this chord grid. I'm doing the 2019 question here. This is 2019 question 5 from the composing paper. Okay, so we're in the key of C minor. Take your time doing your chord grid and do a chord grid. I don't care how confident you are doing chords, do your chord grid and making sure to allow for the raised seventh. Okay, so B natural is our raised seventh here. Make sure your flats are the same as well. Okay, again, you can use, when you're inputting your chords, you can use Roman numerals or chord symbols. I think in the major chord example, I just did chord symbols. In this example, I'm going to use Roman numerals all the way through. Okay, step 1, find your cadence points. Now, importantly here, these will normally be at the end of each line, and in this case that is true. Okay, but they don't have to be. Okay, you have to try and find the natural ending of the musical phrase. In the major key tutorial I did on the YouTube channel, it's actually quite interesting. It's a good one to look at because the phrases don't always end at the end of a line, and some lines might have 3 bars on them and stuff like that. So don't always assume it's going to be at the end of the 4th bar. In this case here, it is. Okay, so you've got a cadence point here, here, and here. Okay, first of all, jot in your last chord. It's always going to be chord 1. Okay, put that in the box straight away. Okay, okay, so let's have a look at the different cadences we have. And like with the major key, you have to know your cadences. Okay, perfect cadence, imperfect cadence, plagal cadence, interrupted cadence, whatever it might be, you need to know what your cadences are. Okay, so looking at the options for the chords here. Okay, so here the chords we have available to us over this range of notes. Now this is a kind of an interesting point here. Okay, you'd look at this instantly and think, okay, well actually it's the chord of 1 really is the chord that would go with this, but we can't go 1 to 1, and conversely 1 to 6 we don't really want to do that at a cadence point. So in this case here, and this is unusual, okay, the harmony notes here are actually G and D. The F and the E flat there are considered passing notes. It's an unusual one specific to this example. Okay, so if you look at something like at a cadence point and go, here, that's weird, as this one would be. This would be going 1 to 6, which is, it's not going to do that. Look at maybe could the other notes be the harmony notes, and generally when you're working in step, if you've got 4 notes going down in step like that, you can take the 1st and the 4th note. So the options available to me here are 5 or 5/7, going to 1 or 6. I'm going to choose 5/1, perfect cadence. Okay, next cadence point down here. Okay, the options over this chord, we've got an F and an A flat, so the 2 options for me here are 2B. Remember, we don't use 2, it's got to be 2B, has to be 2B, or 4. And then the second chord here, really the only option available there would be 5. Don't use 5/7 as the last chord in the cadence point. Okay, 2B to 4. I could use either there. Either is fine. Anything like 2 going to 5 is great. As is often said, chord 2, its purpose is to go to 5. But either is good. I'm just choosing 4 here in this case here. And then towards the very end, the last 3, we've already picked the last chord. It's chord 1, and it's always going to be chord 1 right in the start. Okay, don't forget it's a small 1 there. So because we're in the minor key, and again the options here, there's really no other options at this chord here. 2B is really the only option we have. This one here could be 5 or 5/7, and then 1 here. But again, my 2B 5/7 1 works beautifully there. Okay, but really you've got to be looking at a perfect cadence there at the end. It's probably going to be that or 4/1 at the end. Okay, cadence points. You've done your cadence. Move on. Now chord options. Sketch in your options, okay? Now, unless it's really, really obvious what the chords are, just sketch in everything that's available to you, okay? We know the last chord is 1. We've done our cadences here. The first, okay, just looking at the second line, really chord 1 is the only option available to me here. So just write it in. And again, here, the chord of 4 is really the only option available to me here. So I'm going to put that in, okay? Next 2 boxes here, again, the 2 options for me using my chord grid are 2B and 5/7. Or 1, sorry, for that box, and then 1 or 6 in that box. And just to stress here as well, don't forget about inversions, okay? So 5/7, you could be 5/7B. You know, so let's say, for example, you were in a scenario where you're thinking, okay, hang on, I've got two of the same chords in a row. It doesn't actually happen here, but it does happen later. Let's say you had a 5 here and another 5 here, and you thought, okay, hang on, that's not going to work. I can't have the same chord twice in a row. Don't forget inversions. You can go from 5 to 5B. They are different chords, okay? You're perfectly allowed to do that. Second line, again, now I would say, just because I'm under a bit of time pressure here with the video, I would say just the options here are 2B, 4, 5, 7. Okay, if you need to pause that and look at your chord grid, do. Next one, 2B or 5, 7. And again, as I say, I would recommend pausing this as you go along and checking this against the chord grid so you can understand why I've picked those chords. I'm not putting in every version available to me here, okay? Except 2B, because it always has to be 2B. Next box, 5, 5, 7 or 2B. Next box, 5, 5, 7. After that, 1, 4, 6. Here, 4 or 6. We've done this already. That's our cadence. Last line here. It's got to be chord 1 in at the start. No other option available. C, E flat, G. It's chord 1 all day long. And then the next box, the available chords are 4 and 6. Next box here, 2B or 4. Here we have 5 or 5, 7. Here we have 1 or 6. And again, I went through that pretty quick, but please pause as you're going along, as I go through every box there, and refer to the chord map. Okay. Then you're going to, as you go along, the next point you're going to do is you're going to actually select what chord you're going to do. Okay. So what you really want to do here is you want to look at like what's a strong progression. Okay, so we said here in this box here we could have 2B or 5, 7. Here we could have 1 or 6, and we had settled on 5, 1 as our cadence here at the end. We've already done that. Okay, so we were looking at this. We could go, like, if we work backwards from the 5, 7 here, or from the chord 5 here, could have gone 6, yeah. But 1 to 5 is very, very strong. Okay, so we go with that. 6 to 5 mightn't be great there. And then 5, 7 before that going to 1. Now, why did I pick 5, 7 here? Because I've got an F natural up there. The F is there, and that's the 7th note in the chord of G. Okay, so it's a 5, 7 there. 5, 1, 5, 1. Great. Any combination of 1, 4, 5, 1. They are your primary chords. You can't go wrong with them. Next line here, okay, we have the options available to us here are 2, 4, 5, 7. We had look. Basically, what I'm trying to do here all the way along is I'm trying to look for a nice chord sequence. Now, anything where you're going down in thirds, if you can find that anywhere, it's a great chord progression. So, for example, the reason I chose these chords there was 4 going to 2 is a great chord progression. Okay, likewise 6 going to 4. 1 going to 6, great chord progressions. Okay, and because I've settled on 2 here, 2 has to go to 5. Okay, it really just it's drawn, it's magnetically drawn to the chord of 5. So do that there. Okay, and then also watch out. I had to put 5 here because the B natural. Okay, that B natural just jumps out at me, and I had to do that there. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just checking the time. These tutorials run out after 15 minutes. Okay, so finishing off here. Okay, again, I have 1. These are the options here to me: 1, 4, or 6. And again, anything where you can go 1 to 6. Okay, I couldn't go 4 to 6 going up in thirds, not so good. Okay, 6 to 4 would have been okay, but 1 to 6 is great, really great. 1, 6. Going down another third there to 4 is great. Anywhere we can go down in thirds, great. And I've got my cadence here. The last line, we had settled on this here. We had settled on chord 1 here. Then my options available to me here, 4 or 6 here, are going to be determined by what I can do here. Okay, and again, I can see if I go 6 to 4, there's another example of a falling third. I'm looking out for that. Anywhere you can fall a third, do it. Okay. And then moving up a step is very good. Okay, now the next part, I've only got 5 or 5, 7 there. They're my only options there, so I just went with 5. Okay, 5, 7 would have been perfectly fine there. 5, and then after that I can go to the 1 or 6. I went up to 6 because 5 to 6 in the minor key, it's a nice progression. Okay, 5 is good, and I could have done that up here as well. Okay, that would have been okay up here as well. But I just, it's a better cadence. That's a cadence point there, so I went perfect cadence there. Okay, and then we had already done the last one, 2B 5-7-1, excellent cadence. Okay, guys, then I'm going to send on a second tutorial now that deals with writing the bass line in the minor key. Okay, well done.